I'm Jane Sterk, leader of the Green Party of BC, and welcome to our online talk show, Green BC Solutions for a Better Future. It's my pleasure to welcome John Kay, who is a partner or an owner of Affordable Sustainable Homes.
Co-founder and chief executive officer, but it's all good.
That's great.
It's all
That's
part of
great.
it's all part of the title.
And for me, it's very, very exciting to talk to you about affordable, sustainable homes, because we all know that this is a major problem in BC. And so tell us a little bit about what you're doing and what you're imagining.
Well, thanks, Jane. It's great to be here. So Affordable Sustainable Homes, the name of our company. We're a company that develops small footprint homes, primarily condominium style homes, and they're really targeted at folks who are in probably the most excluded part of our home or a housing market, which is folks who have stable jobs, but incomes in the $30,000 to $50,000 range. So particularly in places like Victoria or Vancouver or Abbotsford or Kelowna, or many cities around our province, there is no hope for most of those folks in ever being able to own their own home. So what we do is we build small scale homes that are priced in a way that makes it possible for those folks to be able to have their own home, have the dignity that goes along with owning your own home, and owning something that's not just low end of market, but something that's well designed, it's dignified. It says that you're a real human being and you, like everyone else, should have the right to be able to afford your own home. So there should be a place in the market for you, and the market should be able to supply you with a home that you can live in. And it should be sustainable. So we talk a lot about what that means in the home building industry. People tend to think it means photovoltaic or solar or geothermal, and all of that's true, but there's also a whole other dimension, which is really how we make efficient use of land itself. So the way we make efficient use is by just using a very compact piece of land, typically 50 or 60 by 100 standard city lot, and building on it a beautiful building that would look a lot like a home or a contemporary building with 12 or 15 homes in it, small footprint homes. You make efficient use of land like that, you're automatically being more sustainable just by not making huge demands in the land base. You're also recognizing that you can live thrifty. You don't have to have a big place to live well. We often look at places like IKEA, who are masters at designing small spaces. Yeah. And when you say to somebody, you think about a 375 square foot apartment, and they will make the sign of the cross and back up and look at you cross-eyed. But when they see something like that, they say, my God, that's beautiful. I could live in something like that. And just by dint of that, it becomes sustainable because you don't need as much stuff. You reduce your footprint. The other thing that we do is we try as much as we can, as much as zoning and communities will allow us, to develop buildings that have no parking. They have share cars, or where it's possible, they have a relationship with a car share cooperative. That is incredibly important, not just as a sustainability feature, but when you think about the cost of owning and maintaining a car, when you can take that out of the equation, it reduces the cost for individuals to own their own home. So that's what we try to do. The core of ASH is really about building homes, but it's really it's a much broader mission that drives us, and that is a mission of trying to make affordable homes an everyday reality for everyone, and trying to do it in a way that is far more sustainable and far less costly than home ownership traditionally is.
So tell me a little bit about the economics of that, because most developers are, I do remember that when I was on Esquimalt Council, we started to see smaller and smaller units. The developers were coming in and 450 square feet, 700 square feet. So it was a dramatic shift downward from 1,100 or 1,200 square feet that you might have seen in a traditional apartment at one point in time, not too many years ago. But there was still that sense of affordability being probably beyond that $30,000 to $50,000 income level for even the smaller units that were coming to us. So how have you worked out the economics of home ownership? I was reading in the paper the other day that people in Vancouver are now spending 60% of their income on housing. When I was young, we were told 33%. That's about what you should spend on housing. And so there's this sense of housing is unsustainable in British Columbia. So what are the economics that you're a business, you're in it not just for the ability to fill a need, but I'm assuming that you have a profit motive. So how do you make the economics work?
It's a great question, Jane, and I think you're right. We're very much a social enterprise. We're a for-profit company that's really driven by a mission. And you're right that the economics of home ownership are becoming disastrously unaffordable in British Columbia. There was a study that you probably saw. It came out a couple of weeks ago. It was a survey of 325 global cities. Vancouver was the 23rd least affordable city in the world, with an income to housing price ratio of 9.1. Victoria was not much better. I think it was something like 7.4 or 7.5, with a medium income in Victoria of about $60,000 a year. That says a lot about what's going to happen in the next 10 or 15 or 20 years as younger people are trying to buy homes that, in a lot of cases, baby boomers are selling to move into smaller places. It's going to create a huge problem for us, I think. The economics of Ash are very interesting. I mean, economics in building, first of all, a lot of the price is driven up simply by the cost of land. Most builders are tending to build on fairly large scale. Generally, they achieve housing affordability by one of two things, either trying to build large buildings or by trying to build some amount of ground floor retail in order to subsidize cost. And in order to do that, they've generally got to assemble, larger land parcels. So one of the things that we made a conscientious decision to do was to concentrate on just a single building lot and spread the costs of 12 or 15 units over that. So on a per square foot basis, it might look a little bit more expensive, but when you get down to the actual price of the unit, it's pretty attractive in the marketplace. We have also built a whole business structure, business philosophy for Ash, which is very different than traditional development. Because as you know, traditional development is very much a kind of, I'm going to put all my money on the table, I'm going to take a risk, I'm going to build 15 stories, and then at the end of that, I and my investors expect to get back a very large return on our investment. And we may not do another project for a couple of years. Our approach has been very different, to look at Ash a bit more like, well, IKEA is a good example, like a consumer product company, where partly what you try to do is to deliver a reasonably continuous supply of homes into the marketplace, and recognizing that you're only building about a 6,000 square foot building, so it's really just 2 or 3 houses when you put it all together. But delivering that relatively continuous supply into the marketplace, and in doing so, calibrating the whole costs and profit margins so that it looks a little bit more like a consumer products company. You're not necessarily looking for the 25 or 30% rates of profit that traditional developers do. We look at a much lower end of the market, which allows us to keep the prices low. It allows us to generate more than enough money to run the business and to keep the price affordable. And we're always looking at ways that we can innovate through research and development on building technology that, again, will help us to progressively bring the cost of housing down.
So a traditional developer, I really hadn't thought about that they do these large projects, and then there may be a period of time after which the profit from that first project needs to sustain the business, whereas yours is you're in the business for the full time and for the long term.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the other thing about us is we've taken a very different approach to the one of the crucial parts of home building, which is capital. So one of the things we do is, as we construct projects, we keep most of the profit in Ash so that we can recycle it into the next series of projects, which means lower financing costs, greater certainty, and less risk. And risk is really one of the things that has such a massive impact in driving up the economics of home building or residential building generally. Because you build a building, you hope against hope that when you're done, you've sold it or you've leased it, you've essentially cleared it out.
Right.
And we know, just looking around Victoria, how many examples there are of residential developments that are sitting largely empty right now, which means tremendous cost. And as a consequence of that cost, you've seen unit prices that are up. You look at the Olympic Village now, and they're having to reduce prices. So we've tried to very consciously look at every aspect of the development business and look at where we can wring out those kinds of risks and uncertainties and costs to keep economics down and keep prices, ultimately to keep prices down, because really that's what drives us. It's, yes, we need to generate a certain amount of profit to run our business, and we are in business for a profit, but the starting and ending point for us is, what can we sell a home for? And is that price affordable relative to the kind of income ranges that we target and relative to the rest of the market?
Yeah. Now, you called yourself a social enterprise, and I want to go back there. It's not something I imagined that we would talk about, but it is an increasingly popular form of corporate structure where people do have a social mission and an intention of making a positive contribution to community. It's a very exciting transition, I think, from the traditional sense of a corporation just being in it for profit for their shareholders to carrying with it that responsibility for community. Can you just say a little bit more about that?
Sure. And let me answer that as well with a personal anecdote, Jane. This is something that has been, I guess, a passion of mine for many, many years. Outside of ASH, one of the things I do is I chair the board of Fair Trade Canada, which is the body that, the national body that licenses and certifies and raises awareness for fair trade products across Canada. It's an interesting organization because, while it's a nonprofit, all of the money that runs the organization is generated from licensing fees that we obtain from companies all across the country. So it means that, on the one hand, yes, we're a nonprofit, but we're a nonprofit that lives in the for-profit commercial world. To me, that has been an exciting development. We weren't always that way. It's a journey that the organization has gone through over the last 5 or 6 years. But it's been enormously empowering in watching how you have a kind of market discipline supporting a nonprofit. And we know that the nonprofit world is so often full of organizations that have the best of intentions and struggle greatly because they can't run the operation itself. They can't run the organization. So I've seen it in practice. I've seen it work successfully as a model, and it really gives you that balance between the discipline of a market and the ability to do something good. And so that's a philosophy that my partners and I brought into ASH, that we think it's important. There's a whole bunch of reasons why you want to run as a for-profit business, separate and apart from generating a return for any of us. But by the same token, to be guided by more than just profit as your reason for getting up in the morning. And for us, it really is that social mission, that sense of mission that drives us. Profit, in a way, is a way of disciplining us to make sure that we are relentlessly focusing on costs. We're thinking about markets. We're thinking about all of those things that you would typically think about in running a for-profit business. But it's not the thing that drives our passion for what we do.